Because when I started the page, I remember like it was after midnight, and I had three images. I knew that these are my planned renders. I will post them. But with the name, I had no idea. So
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good. That's good.
yeah,
Right, just probably we'll start with a typical question about because you are an architect, you are an urban designer, and
yeah.
when did you start that dream? Like when did you realize you want to like go through that career?
Actually, I think I always had the interest towards representation and graphics. During my bachelor's, I think final year as well, I was trying too hard to make my presentations look better than everyone else, and I did succeed at that. I think that's one of the parts which got me good marks. I would say, not
Mm-hmm.
basically all, not the design completely. But later on, when I was started working as an urban designer in CBRE in Pune, I think at that point I realized like I want to do something absolutely architectural graphics, but I had no clue at that point that if somebody is doing something like that, is there something actually like a career where you could do something of this sort? But I did see a lot of people, I think based in UK, they do creative visuals, creative artistic impressions, how they call it. And then I knew that something like this exists, but I had no clue how to proceed with this as a career or something of that sort. So I think the pandemic just pushed me into something where I knew nothing can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You just can try something because you have a lot of time on your hands. And that's when I jumped into something which I had no clue about.
And for example, in terms of to become an architect, right? Did you study architecture in India? Did you study in the UK? Um,
I studied bachelor's in architecture, so we have a 5 years integrated course
and this is in
completely.
India, I assume.
Yes,
Yeah.
in
Okay.
India, it's Bachelor's of Architecture, and we have a sort of 1 or 2 semesters for internship during that period. And then I straight away came to London, completing my graduation. I went to University of Westminster
Mm-hmm.
for my master's in urban design. I studied for a year, completed the post graduation, and then I had to go back to India at that point because there wasn't a lot of visa opportunities at that point. So I came back to India. I worked, yeah, so basically graduation in India and then post graduation in London.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And sorry, what was the year and you came to UK?
I came to UK in 2016-17, so
Okay.
that was long back. No,
Yeah.
sorry, 17-18. I completed my graduation in 16. Yeah, and I came back at the same year end, and then I went back to India in 2018. And worked around for 2 years, 2.5 years, three, and then sort of during pandemic, I realized like I don't want to work in India anymore. I want to go back to London, so I tried to sort of go for a master's in construction project management, which I thought it would help me again in my career path. So I took up the course last year at again University of Westminster, and currently I'm enrolled in the course right now. Finished my both semesters, but I still have my dissertation remaining.
Okay. Okay. And how did you find in terms of the education itself between both universities, like India and the UK? And was there any like difference in terms like more tough to study or to do the assignments? It's a different way in terms of the way they teach the architecture. What difference did you saw in both universities?
I think it's a huge difference. There's a huge, and it's a good difference, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, like because back in India, not sure about all the universities, but I think major university they have a like a very straightforward and a rigid sort of education system. It's not very flexible, and then they kind of try to push for hand drafted drawings during the initial years. But then when they expect you to do digitally in the last 2 years, not everyone can cope up the difference. So I think one of the biggest gap was like not having a very straightforward understanding what path to use at what time. That's one. Second, I would say like here it's more flexible. I would say like because obviously architecture is a very creative field. So the creative freedom I would say was not as much back in
Mm-hmm.
India. You're not like if you're trying to explore something out of the box sort of ideas, you'd be mocked, probably, or sort of you'd be asked questions which will put you in the spot about functionalities, etc. So those are the things which always you can't reach to a certain level. You always try to, come back and try to make everything functional. And then when you're working on functionality as the core idea, it's very difficult to explore other aspects of design.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's um, I can't speak in terms of the universities in Portugal, but I do remember some friends telling me in terms of, for example, here the difference I saw it was the timetable. We probably had in bachelors we probably had I can't remember, maybe three days a week, and it was probably 9 to 6, and then probably the other day was like 9 to 12 or something like that, and then the other days was mostly for us to do the work or to do research or studies, etc. When in Portugal, my friends probably had, for example, all day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 6. So
Yeah.
it's really tough in terms like, I believe it's really tough to study and do all those modules. And I believe even for other students that want to work and study at the same time, it's harder for them to reconcile those both jobs, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, but did you study or work during the studies?
No, actually, that's a very good point which you mentioned about the timetable. It's actually, it makes a lot of difference in your studying patterns, in your learning curve. I mean, it makes a huge difference because I remember like my university bachelor's was exactly as you said, Monday to Friday. It started at 8, it finished at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and by that time you don't have the energy to do something. You either, because most of the students they come from different cities back
Hmm.
in India to study in different city, everyone wants to go in different city, majority. So it makes the life very difficult, as trying as a bachelor, like you're trying to make your own lifestyle and then uh, coping with a lot of things at the time. So I think the timetable was very one of the things now when I look back at it. Yes, it was very hectic, and no option of obviously interning, no option of working anywhere because you don't get time. You just get
Hmm.
weekends, and then there's always a submission on Mondays. I remember like the Mondays were always the architectural design, like the main module, and then you would always have some sort of submission. So basically, yes, I think no option of working. But yeah, when I was doing my urban design, I was working part time. I had obviously the freedom of 20 hours as an international student. I could work 20 hours. So I was working in a pharmacy. Basically, it was kind of like an odd job, in a pharmacy as a reception sort of a person who could just give away the medicines, etc. So that's, I used to work on Saturdays, so I could like take care of some expenses.
Yeah.
So I think that's something cool about
No, no,
being
exactly.
a,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure.
And then, so in terms of we're talking the topic about the school universities in India. Um, is anything that you will say for your audience, Indian audience, or anyone that follows you from India and that is currently studying architecture or it looks to study architecture or follow the architect path? Is anything that you will give them a feedback or like something that you recommend to them to do if they want to stay in India to study or if they're looking to study abroad? What would you say to them based on your experience that you already had?
Mhm. Yeah, that's actually really nice because getting this platform again to share some of my thoughts with the audience here. I think most, as far as I know, because of all the questions and feedbacks which I get on the page, I guess a lot of majority of Indian students want to go abroad for masters. Because even though it's a 5 years course back in India, and then you still want to study more because because of I think the one main factor which it is, you are not paid enough as a fresher, and everyone thinks that master's education will help earning something better, like you can get the return of investment eventually. So that kind of attracts a lot of students to do masters education, which I think is a fair idea. Everyone wants to, do better in the career, be financially stable at certain age. So I think that's a very good choice which people are making. I'm very much into going abroad to study. I think if somebody's thinking of doing architecture and haven't started yet, I would suggest them to not invest 5 years of education, money, etc. in
Hmm.
India rather than spend that amount of money somewhere in the UK university, because I feel like the education is very drastically different and it will help again in the career as well. So that's one thing which I would suggest. Second thing I would suggest is like obviously to do a thorough research about the university which you're going in, the country which you're going in. You need to have an understanding of what the laws are, how easy it is to work in that country after, if you're looking for working in the same country. I think you need to make a very informed decision about it. For example, like people go to the US and they think that yes, you could work as an architect. I mean, you have the visa freedom or something you get to work on there. But then again, from feedback, a lot of my friends who have studied in the US, they say that it's not very easy if you're working in one state.
Hmm.
You could Each state has different rules or sort of different requirements when it comes to hiring as architects. So I think you need to make a very informed decision about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's good. And um, and so in terms of you're already an architect or a designer, and then you was, I think you already told me already, but you can share again. I
Yeah,
think it was in 2019 when the pandemic came, or 2020, that you decided to create Candy Architecture, right?
yeah.
And
Um,
sorry, go on. I
no, 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 go on. I thought, like, yeah, yeah.
was just gonna say, so when did you realize that you want to create the architecture candy? What was the thoughts behind? Did you had any thoughts about creating this project before, but somehow it didn't make it, or didn't, you thought it wasn't the time? Or how did you came up with the idea and, right, I'm going to decide I'm going to create architecture candy? Yeah, just share with us.
Yeah, I think it's a funny story. And so I quit my job just before the pandemic, and I had no clue that it's going to be there for like, which felt like forever. So I had to come back, and I was thinking I would get a job eventually, but nobody was hiring at that point. And I thought of conducting a workshop. So Architecture Candy was second, the workshop thought was first. And then I thought like maybe I should take a Photoshop workshop where I could just teach my Photoshop skills, which I felt fairly good enough to teach as well. And some of my friends, juniors, seniors from my graduation, they attended. So that was the first workshop, and then I thought like maybe I'll have to create a page as well where I could showcase exactly what I'm going to teach, because not everyone will understand what exactly it's going to be there. So I tried creating content just to make sure that this is the kind of things which you could do on Photoshop, and these are the things which you could learn in my workshop. So it was only at that point of time, it was just a thought that during the pandemic I could start this, and meanwhile I was still applying for jobs. So it was always something part time, or just side like thing which I was going about. But then it grew a lot during pandemic. I think everyone was resharing a lot of architectural content. There were a lot of pages which were resharing. All I think a lot of people had this kind of suddenly a very mind shift change happened where everyone wanted to learn something. They thought like maybe learning something new is gonna make the best out of the time. So I think that helped a lot, because then I got a lot more people coming in for workshops as well. Initially, it was just majority Indian students, Indian audience as well. But then later on, it shifted completely, and now I would say like now even for the workshops I'm taking right now, I would say like 20 or 30% only Indian audience is there. So I think that shift like kind of made me realize that this is something not just part time. This is something going really good, and I don't want to stop this because it's helping also a lot of students. Plus, it is something of my interest, and I could always take this forward with the help of collaborations, etc.
Hmm.
So that's how it kind of started. Exactly. It's not something which I all thought of, or it was never well planned. It was not even a business idea in my head. It was just something which I started as just my passion. I still remember during pandemic, I used to stay up whole night because everyone's schedule, I would say sleep schedule was messed up. So mine was messed up as well. So I used to just stay up overnight and I would just do some Photoshop stuff and then I would post it. So I used to daily I used to create something new, trying, etc. And then I also got better at it. So I think something which I really loved and something just the opportunity came, and those two things mixed together to create this particular platform.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, and then well, anyone can go to Instagram or you don't have YouTube, have you? Not yet. At least
No,
not
no,
yet, right?
no. I'm not a very tech savvy person yet, and I feel like it. For me, I feel like it's something is. I feel it's intimidating
hmm
to record YouTube, to edit videos, etc. So I feel I don't know when will I do that, but I don't know. I still haven't thought about it.
No, no, exactly. But even so, like you have your workshops. How often do you do your workshops?
It's usually like in a month. Every month, I do Photoshop, Illustrator, and sometimes it is usually schedule it a little later. For example, 1.5 month, 2 months. Like for example, the Photoshop workshop, which is gonna happen next weekend. I don't have it scheduled as such. But Illustrator workshop, I had no idea that I would be scheduling very soon. But last workshop was more than full. People were coming in, and then then I had to have to schedule it sometime in the next month.
hmm
So usually it depends on how many people are inquiring about it, how much people are like showing interest, etc. So these are the two live workshops currently I'm conducting. Maybe once in a month, or you can say like 40 days. I think 40-45 days. I have to take one of the workshops because there's a lot of queries coming in, etc.
Yeah. Do on normally how many people do you have in your workshops? Like, do you have a limit that you put on each workshop? Is it?
Yeah, I
hmm
do have a limit. I mean, I take somewhere around 25 to 30,
hmm
not more than 30 at any point. So usually when it's reaching around 28 or 25 already, I just close the registrations because usually thing is people keep on paying and then they would say like, oh, we have registered. So I do have to close the registrations were sooner as it reaches somewhere around 25, 26, because I know like there will be some more people coming in towards the last moment
hmm
for some reason or the other. So I try to do that. But yeah, there is a limit because the Illustrator workshop, it's quite interactive. It's something which, because it's not a very straightforward and a linear workflow, Illustrator, it's not very intuitive sort of workflow. You can do a lot of things over there. So it's usually I do conduct it simultaneously, like I'm teaching something and then they are trying themselves as well. So it's very interactive. So that's when it becomes very difficult if I try to take more students, because I make sure that every student is engaged into the workshop. Everyone is having, if they're having doubts, they can easily share the screen. They can ask questions. They can. So that's the reason they produce a lot of stuff in the like 2 to 3 days, because we are working together on it. And
hmm
so yeah.
And how long is the duration of the workshop roughly? Um,
The thing is, actually, since 2 years I was taking it for 3 days, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and all 3 days I was doing 3 hours basically, 2 to 3 hours, sort of 2.5 hour, 3 hours, depending like what workshop it is. But because I started as an urban designer on full time with Gensler, now I just have the weekends, so I kind of have switched to only Saturdays, Sundays, but I have stretched the hours. Now it's like 4 hours Saturdays, 4 hours Sundays. But because it's very interactive, it doesn't feel that you're just listening to somebody. And I know how taxing it is, like four
mhm.
hours, it sounds too much. But it's a lot of breaks in the middle. So I think it keeps the workshop interesting for me as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And in terms as you touched the point of Chessler, and you are now a urban designer, I assume.
Yeah.
So it's a recent job, isn't it, as well?
Yes,
So
yes, it is.
how has been the experience so far?
Oh, it's really nice. It's actually very refreshing. Because I have never worked in the UK, I was always skeptical about the work culture, how it's going to be there. But I always knew that it's better than India. I've worked in India and I've had my share of highs and lows there. So I think compared to India, I would say it's much better. There is a lot of creative freedom. There is a lot of scope of you working with diverse people. I think that's one of the biggest lesson I learned here, is that there's a lot of different teams which you can work on simultaneously, and you wouldn't feel that you're working with a different team altogether on a project. It's very seamless. So I think that's one of the really interesting things which I kind of saw here, and I was amazed by that, like how huge teams, like not just 2 3 people, like 16 17 people on a project, if they're working, and all of them like have different sub teams, etc. But the work process and the workflow is very seamless,
Hmm.
and it's a great learning as well, because you get to learn from very different types of leaders from different areas.
Okay. And in terms, something came to my head in terms like, for example, the softwares itself, because Chancellor is a big company, and
Yeah.
working as a urban designer, and as well for your background in terms of the architecture candy, having all those workshops in different softwares. So how did you um, came with this expertise in different softwares? Because as you know, and probably our listeners as well, starting and working in architecture, you can't just work with Illustrator, or you can't
Yeah.
just work with Photoshop. So you need to keep like updating and keep working in Illustrator, Photoshop, AutoCAD, Revit, Rhino. So all these softwares that in our career will really need to be updated and have a not a basic, but pretty much a medium or a higher expertise in these softwares. So how did you start learning all these softwares? And is any also recommendation or feedback that you will give to these students that are listening to this podcast, or even junior architects, for example? But
Yeah.
yeah, so what's your opinion on this one?
And that's a very good question, actually, because as you suggested, as you mentioned as well, it's not just any one software. Because I know that I'm expert in Adobe Creative, but I know my like setbacks as well. I'm not very great at parametric, or I would say Rhino, Grasshopper, or anything which is more futuristic as such. And during the whole education span back in India, when I was working, studying, Revit was just a software which we didn't know, we didn't realize the importance at that point. Nobody still realizes, I think, back in India, there is a very set sort of software each office works on, and it's basically AutoCAD and SketchUp, I would say. But the whole other part of the world has moved on. I mean, I remember like the first orientation, like at Gensler, the design or technology team, who there was an orientation with design and technology. So Gensler has its own software, so has its own sort of like a really high level of technological advancement in the organization as well. But you don't have to get intimidated, because if you have the knowledge of basic softwares like Revit, Rhino, you could do it. But one thing which they mentioned, that they don't work on AutoCAD and SketchUp, which was very frightening for me, because I have worked on AutoCAD and SketchUp for a very good amount of years in my career. So yes, I think as an urban designer, Revit was not something which is very often used in Gensler. Like I haven't had a chance to work on it, but Rhino is. So basically, Rhino is something which I'm still learning right now. So that's a good thing. The organization has its own learning paths and LinkedIn Learning, etc. So you can make the most out of it. You can learn on the go. But one recommendation which I would give to everyone here is at least one of these softwares. You have to be master at one of the
Hmm.
things. So what it can help you with is that if you come in the team, you always have to think about what how the recruiters will work, or how any organization will hire you. It's because what are you bringing onto the table. So then you kind of are the specialist sort of a person, and then your value or your personal value increases. So I would say, like, whatever is interesting enough to you, you can master that. But be like sort of be sufficient enough, or like proficient enough in the other softwares, because it's endless.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
am I Yeah, I'm personally feeling very intimidated as well, because it's just endless, because you need to learn Rhino, and then you need to learn Grasshopper, you need to know Revit as well. So where does it end, I would say? Like, but then again, I think every industry is struggling with technological advancement, so we also have to keep up.
No, exactly, definitely. And for even when I was applying for jobs, and I believe there's people on the same page, because um, some people might not have a company they just want to work for. For example, oh, I want to work for Zadid, and that's it. I don't want to work. I don't want to apply for any other architecture companies. I want to work for Zadid, and I think that there can be a point where, okay, it's totally fine if you have a dream, a company dream where you want to work, because you might turn your life a
Mm.
bit easier in terms the softwares they use. So if you know the softwares they use, the type of diagrams and ideology projects they do, it's easy for you to realize and to analyze what it's missing on the company. So, for example, when they are recruiting, is because they need someone to do a certain job or certain role. So, so I think what I'm trying to say is, for example, trying to it's probably not a good idea to try to know all the softwares. So you call Lumion, you call
Yeah,
V-Ray in terms of rendering
yeah,
engines, and as you said, like, it's good to have a knowledge of all these softwares and be an expert in some of them, because every architecture practice is different. Some companies work AutoCAD only. Some other companies
yes,
which just might work just Revit or Vectorworks. So you don't
yeah,
really know where where to stand. And, like, for example, um, even if a company asks for Rhino and you don't know
mm,
Rhino, so you
yeah,
well, would you apply for that company? Would you not? Because
yeah.
you know what I mean. It's a hard part for her. It's hard to start. But I think further in the line, um, when you start to be more used to these tools and softwares, I would say it's easier to catch up for the software that you never used, because it might be completely different, but they at the same time they might be similar in terms the way they use the tools of each software. And yeah, it's not easy. I'll say the person who's
That's
starting is
true.
not easy.
Yes, that's very true actually. Because the thing is, the thing which I realized, I think I want to tell this to everyone, especially young people who have never worked in a on an organization before. They start trying for the job, first job, etc. One thing which I would say is, like, each organization, as you said, is very different. Their working patterns are very different. So the thing is that even at Gensler, like, you are not supposed to know everything,
Mhm,
because there are experts which are there. Like, there is a computational designers there, there are urban designers and landscape architects. So you are not expected to know everything, but just to have an understanding of how the projects work, you should know that some of the basic things, so that you are in your sort of your position at the organization is not somebody who is outdated or something of that sort. Like, it's basically very personal. But then again, like, at the end of the day, your portfolio should stand out. As you said, you don't have to know Lumion, V-Ray, all the rendering engines, but without their knowledge, your portfolio might not look the best.
mhm,
So I think maybe either make up for some way about it, and I think you can just simply go in the organization where you know that what your role is going to be. So it's always better when you have a specialization, because now everyone has, even I think some of the job roles which never even existing 5 years back are coming in a lot of into line. So for example, design and communications. Basically, it's this and design technology. So I have not ever heard of computational or design technology or these kind of words as much as I'm hearing them now. Maybe I was not exposed to that part of the world a few
mhm,
years back, but I think now is a very good time to explore and master at something, because the roles are ever emerging. So you don't have to restrict yourselves. If you master yourself in something, you would get job for that. I think that's pretty much how it's working as of now.
No, exactly. And
Yeah.
as you were saying, like every company is different, and you might be a role as to be an architect assistant, or you could be in a team for design for just for the architecture competitions. So
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, like it's a versatile role. You can be in any position, but as far as you have knowledge of the architectural in general, in terms of the detailed drawings, all the
Yeah.
foundations, etc., of the architecture in general, I'll say,
Yeah.
you'll be fine. One thing that occurs to my mind as well is there is also more competition because with the years going on, the planet Earth will get more and more population, and it'll be, I will say, will be harder and harder in any kind of industry. I'll say in any kind of jobs to be the best of the best, because more
Yeah.
and more will be more architects, will be more nurses, will be more accountants or whatever. So I think more and more we need to be the best of the best, and I think the architectural candy helps in that way in terms of the workshops to get a better skills of the softwares, and even the presentations for InDesign, because you do also do workshops in InDesign,
Yeah.
correct?
True. I think eventually my goal with Architecture Candy is not that you become pro at Photoshop or just restrict yourself to Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign. My goal is like whatever you design, basically that should be representable. Like, if you're putting that, even though your design is amazing, I do a lot of portfolio reviews as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing which I am constantly seeing across the globe, not just India, not just the UK, which was very unexpected, but I see that the graphics or the architectural representations are very much on the backward side. Because when they're explaining the design, I can understand, oh, they have done this and this is the concept. But because they are physically present, or I would say virtually present there and explaining the design, it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me after hearing them out. But if I, as a recruiter, or as if you're applying for master's education, if I'm looking through a portfolio, the concepts don't communicate that. Like the drawings are not communicating or the concept as such. So I think my role with Architecture Candy is basically to fill that gap,
Mm-hmm.
that whatever you draw should be represented in such a way that you need to understand the reader at the end of the day is a human, and we humans are visual creatures. So you need to work on the visuals as well. No matter your design is super amazing, you have cracked the exams, etc., and everything. But again, for the understanding of the whoever the reader is, no matter who it is, but then your design need to be visually, I would say, strong enough as well.
No, exactly, because
Yeah.
we might have, for example, an idea in our mind how to do the stuffs and not to know to represent on paper or digitally, and that's where it comes handily, let's say, to know all these uh, shortcuts in terms of the to represent the idea of the
Yeah.
design. No, that's very good,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure you everyone asked you this question, but I'll have to ask. So architecture candy, the name. So how it came from, and um, yeah, why architecture candy?
Before I answer that question, I want to ask you, like, what did you think about Architecture Candy? Like, when you heard it for the first time, or maybe like when you went through the page for the first time, what was your thought about the name? Like, be
I like that.
honest, be
I like that.
candid. I know it's you're supposed to ask me questions, but I also want to know, like, from other person's perspective as well.
No, definitely. That's very a good question. Because I'm trying to remember as well when was the first time I saw your page, your Instagram page. Um, because I'm really interested as well in terms of anything in architecture on Instagram, for example, diagrams or even the renders and stuff. So I like to be updated what type of work people can do the best.
Yeah.
What can um, I want to be in that position where uh, I'll keep in doubt if it's a photograph or a render, and that's what probably I keep interested in all these pages of diagrams and how can you represent the process of the design of the building. And so I tried to really think where was the first time I saw your page. And as you said, you start in during the pandemic, 2020, correct?
Yeah.
And so I assume it was around that time because I thought I saw your page before, but that's impossible.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, you probably came as like a suggested page or a suggested post, and I went to
Yeah.
your page and then saw everything else, and I get interested to know more. Uh,
But what did you think about the name? I mean, that's
no,
what I
no,
was trying to
yeah, no, exactly.
mention.
I was coming to the name as next, and then
Yeah.
um, I don't actually know if I have an answer to what I thought about the name because well, architecture candy, it could be. I mean, it could be anything. You probably you like candies and you wanted to give
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
name to architecture, um, or it could be as well as I saw the color palette of your Instagram because it's is pretty much about these tones like really soft tones. It's not really heavy colors like heavy red or
Yeah.
etc. It's really soft, and
Mm.
I think somehow it reminds me the candies if it makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a really soft color and.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think I
Yeah.
thought much about the title rather than your content. I thought
Uh,
I when I looked at your content, right, that I don't care about the name. I just want to follow this page.
yeah.
No, but yeah,
That's very sweet.
I think that
Yeah.
was my first impression interaction to the name.
That's very interesting, and thank you so much. I mean, totally, because when I started the page, I literally I remember like it was after midnight, and I had three images. I knew that these are my planned renders. I will post them, but with the name, I had no idea. So I just put architecture candy without a thought. Like you won't even believe. Like I didn't even give a 1 minute thought as well.
Mhm,
It was not something very well thought of. It was just something. The idea was just to be like eye candy. When you see things, you know eye candy. I mean, it's not the perfect ideal way to compare, but I thought like something which is very attractive in terms of visual and obviously architectural drawings.
mhm,
So my idea was to create the architectural drawings in a very visual aesthetic way because me as a person, I'm a very visual person. So I like everything which is very aesthetic. So I try to create very aesthetic things around me as well. So I thought the same I could translate into my architectural drawings as well. And initially it was a very big struggle because as you said, like you want to be updated of what people are doing, and you also don't want to be copying anyone's style as well. So I had a very hard time to build up that particular style, but I knew that I want to from the beginning. I knew that I want to create something very soft tones, not very visually heavy. So that's the idea which I always wanted. But yes, the candy was, now that you mention it, yes, it does resemble the colors of the candies, very sort of macaron colors, very
mhm.
pastel colors of that sort. So yes, it actually does translate to that too, but my idea was from eye candy. Yeah.
That's good. That's very interesting. And
Yeah.
what's your now that you have an audience of around 100,000 followers on Instagram?
Yeah.
It's pretty huge for what 2 years now, isn't it? Since you started.
Yeah.
Well, when you started actually, how was the your motivation? Because it's an unknown page when you start, right? So you probably post like 2 3 posts, but it's not very. You probably had, I don't know, maybe 50 followers, maybe 30 likes, I don't know. So what did you keep going through like sharing and your work and give to these people like these followers what they really wanted to produce was about because you have your workshop as well, and it wasn't like a sister page where they could interact with your work.
Yeah.
How was it when you started?
That's actually very good because now when I look back, I see a lot of pages, honestly, not wanting to compare or something, but I think a lot of pages started at that point.
Hmm.
And not, if not started, maybe they started producing content a lot during that time. etc. But I think the one thing which kept me going on was my own passion. Like I just want to create. Like till now, I know that on the weekend I want to produce more graphics for the page. I still do it by myself. I do have my team who take care of other stuff, but for the page and the content, it's solely me. I love that part of me. So I want to keep creating some diagrams, something of that sort. It just keeps my, the creative sort of fuel, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I wasn't working full time since I think till September, I wasn't doing this was my full time. So I had a lot of time to try on hands on of different things. But the thing is, I realized in so when it comes to Instagram, it's very unpredictable. You must know, like each and every time there is something changing. So right now, I can see that my engagement is not great since past few weeks. But I don't know for some reason, but it's not that great. There are so many different things. I could literally speak a lot on just Instagram, but I don't want to do that right now. But as you said, like it just kept me going, and I had to at certain point let go of the likes. Um, because I realized halfway through, I realized like what kind of content will get more likes or saves or the following or whatever it is, like more engagement. I knew that this will be the kind of content which
Mm-hmm.
will get it. But there were some things which I was not able to try because of that. I had to restrict. So I thought like no, I would still put a lot of stuff on my page. And I looking back at it now, I think I'm glad I did that because when I did put a diverse set of content, not just restricting to the parts which were selling out, like plans or some sort of drawings and diagrams, that the things which I tried like differently or something just for myself, I want to try. Like I'm not an interior designer, but I still did some interior collage. That was just basically for me.
Mm-hmm.
Some I did some collages for Florence, Rome, and other sort of a series which I did. So that was just for me. And when it comes to the website of mine, I do get clients because of that. So I'm glad that I did not completely listen to what Instagram is asking me to do, but something which I want to do, something which I can expand my like sort of ideas about it, so
Mm-hmm.
that it gave me clients later on my personal projects as well. So I think that was something, just a learning curve, I would say, during all the 2 years. Yeah.
No, exactly, and I think the key as well is as you said, like is passion and be persistent to what we love to do and just keep going, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so have you got any future plans that you want to share or you want to keep in secret that you want to have for architecture candy? Anything that you want to do later on?
Um, Absolutely. I mean, I would love to share that. There's no secret about it. I wasn't ever a very planning sort of a person. Everything I did was very spontaneous on the page. It still is to a very certain extent. What I want to do in the next coming few months, my plan is to obviously automate my workshops because I won't be able to conduct the workshops live in the very near future. So I'm going to be converting my courses onto my websites as course, like basically the courses where you can just go and buy courses. And I also want to break down my courses as well, because I feel like some of the things are very specific, which some people want to learn only the specific bits and pieces. So that will give even the audience a very good flexibility to choose what they want to learn, and then pick and like create their own course bundles, etc. So that's
Hmm.
the kind of future plan I have. Hopefully, by the end of the year, I would be able to do something of that sort. Because the thing is, I've been getting a lot of other projects, other interesting projects, design projects, some various different kinds of projects as well. So I personally am more inclined towards those projects as such. So why not automate this one and then spend my time on my personal projects?
No, exactly. No, that's a very good idea, and I'm pretty sure I'll be here to keep update of your work and then everything you do. So in terms of a more a personal question, if you like,
Yeah.
in as an architect or urban designer career, what do you want to like, or what do you see yourself in 10, 15 years time, or what's the goal that you want to achieve as an architect or urban designer?
That's actually, honestly, nothing I have thought of very specific. I feel like on a personal level, my life has been very interesting when I don't plan
Hmm.
things. That's just the way how it has been, and I think the less I plan, the better things turn out to be. So just with architecture candy, like even with my family, like when I try to tell my family, friends, close friends, etc., that oh I need to do this, like then I stress about some things. Everyone says that you don't have to stress and plan something. See how it turned out with architecture candy when you did not plan. So why not just let that be and don't stress yourself? So that kind of keeps me always being like, yeah, very open. So I am pretty open in certain things, but obviously, as a person with creative background, etc., I do have a sort of that I want to be an urban designer. So I want to work on great urban design projects, where you kind of have that makes an impact overall. So
Hmm.
those are the kind of projects I want to work on as an urban designer. So yeah, I think that's all about it. And plus, things going on, I don't want to restrict my projects and me. So everything else is also running very smoothly. But yes, me as an urban designer to do great projects.
No, that's good. That's good. Everyone is different, isn't it? And we do as how it works for us the best. And
Yeah,
probably a bit, going back a little bit on your page, or maybe it could be a bit more personal. Depends how you take this question.
yeah.
Do you have any specific architects or any specific architecture firm that you are inspired to do what you do in any levels, really?
I think it's an urban design firm, Sasaki. I'm not sure if a lot of people know. They're US based firm, so their work is very interesting in terms of urban design, and their graphics are also amazing. So even back when I was working as an urban designer, I always used to take their images in terms of diagrams as references. So even on the Pinterest, at that point I had no clue that these belong to Sasaki,
Hmm.
but now when I know, I can see that these belong to Sasaki. So I feel like it's a very good balance. Usually in the organizations and firms, you never get to focus more on the representation. But believe me, as an urban designer, even as a practicing of like kind of in the practice as well, I see the graphics are crucial. Like it's crucial. Like I can't emphasize more, and I'm super happy that I do have all the skill set. I don't feel left out or somebody who has to learn a lot in the organization. So I feel very good about that part. But I think yes, so Sasaki is the answer, like one of the firms which I feel very inspired about the work which they do, the graphics, etc., everything. And obviously, yes, Foster and Partners as well. They do also have their own design and communications, etc. So I think that's one of the things. There are some architectural visual artists as well who kind of inspired me. I would say in certain some people, I'm not sure, but some people just inspire you that this can be done.
Hmm.
They don't have to directly teach you something, but when you see somebody doing something, you get an understanding that oh, this could be done as well, which you had no idea about. So I think there are some, like one of them is UK based artist as well, Adrienne Myberg. So she also does a lot of impressions, sort of illustrations, etc. So I would say she was the first point of inspiration for me, that architecture and graphics and aesthetics and visual, I could see somebody doing all of those. So that kind of empowered me on a very different level. Not very direct, I would say. I had spoken to her. She had given me an opportunity as well to give a guest lecture in Falmouth as well. So I'm very thankful to her because directly and indirectly she helped me in my journey.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Um, and because you talk as well in terms of uh, your inspirations as well. One thing that I was going to ask, um, have you ever, or do you feel you want to do some architecture companies as well? Companies, competitions. Did you ever felt that you would like to compete in any architecture project? Because I think you will do pretty good in terms of I haven't seen the architecture in general that you do, but I've seen a lot about the presentation and diagrams, and I think that will make a quite a lot impact to the juries, the way you present your ideas. And I think you will have like um, a big point just for the presentation.
Yeah.
So yeah, have you ever felt like to do any competition?
Absolutely. I think I did a couple of architectural competitions in the first year. During pandemic itself, I
Mm-hmm.
did two design competitions, and obviously I wanted to win. I mean, obviously everyone wants to win, but we didn't win. We both of them were honorable mentions, and sort of like top 25 for uh, whatever. Like, but it was honorable mention, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
but not top three. So, and then I did an urban design competition as well, which was very good, but again not in the top three. It was again honorable mention, top 30 sort of, the idea which I get. After that, I really wanted to do. I mean, it has been one of the things, like, knowing that I could do graphics. I always thought I could win an architectural competition, but after that, the thing is, I couldn't get a lot of time, plus
Mm-hmm.
did not even come across a lot of competition. I had a lot of my friends, my team, we discuss a lot of competitions. Oh, we should do this, we should do that, but it never actually materializes into something, because uh, you have to have very strong, passionate people with you. So even when you are not lot into it, at least they are. So you kind of keep each other on toes when it comes to competitions. So yeah, after that, I think after these three, it's been more than a year. Like I haven't done any other competition.
So, is anything like do you want to say like anything that I missed, question something, and you want to share with us?
Not exactly. I mean, I'm very happy with how we have chatted. I think we covered a lot of very informative
No, definitely, yeah.
stuff, so which I'm very proud of, because even the questions were very informative. Like it will help from a person who is listening to it. I can understand, like, even people in the UK, people back in India. I think a lot of people can get help through this as well. One of the things I just want to mention to all people out there, just especially students, I would say, uh, I think the one of the things which you might have to work on is, like, have an understanding of how things work globally,
Mm-hmm.
because not just things which are working in the UK, or not just things working back in India or Portugal. So I think having an understanding of how drawings, design, and everything is evolving on the global level, that can keep you very updated, and that will help you later on in your portfolio as well. And with the ease of Instagram, I think you can know from every part of the world. You can understand what the designing is going about. I think that's just a key recommendation towards the end. Yeah,
But yeah, no, was
absolutely.
very good to talk with you.
Cool.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
down the
Same
line,
here.
no, thank you, and hopefully, further down the line, we'll do another episode for more updates that you might have. But yeah,
Yeah. I would love to do that with being an urban designer. Once I start, like, once I get more settled at Gensler, and see how things work in the UK as an urban designer. So for any potential urban designers, I mean, I would love to share that. And about my master's thing, which I think I discussed with you, it's still in the process. I'm so hopeful to get it started sometime. So hopefully we could discuss that as well in one of your episodes.
no, no, definitely, and I think we are pretty much 5 months to the end of the year, and
Yeah,
whenever you feel right, I want to share things with you, Pedro. And then, all right, just like let's just rearrange a podcast and then let's do it.
yeah.
But no, definitely that's good. And then
Cool.
I think that's what brings us together in this community of architecture
Yeah,
because we share the same passion, we share the same topic, and we just
absolutely.
talk about it. And then that's good. And again, Vishakha, thank you
Absolutely.
very much for your time and for your day. And
Thank you
I'll
so
speak to you
much,
soon.
Pedro. It
Thank
was
you. I'll speak to you soon.
amazing speaking to you.
So yeah, this was the podcast with Vishaka. Hope you like it. Any questions you wanna give to her, just please comment below. We'll give it to her, and she will be also updated to those comments and those questions. So yeah, hope you like it, and the next episode will be available soon. So take care.